Demon Avenger is the only class in Maple that uses health for both their main stat and cost for all their skills, instead of the typical mana of most other classes. They're also a fairly capable bosser, being one of the strongest in the game if you're willing to put in the effort to learn how to play them properly. Their Link skill and Legion block are some of the best to get for every class too, giving 15% damage for the level 3 Link at 210, and 5% boss damage at 200 for the Legion, or 6% at 250. This is the first time I'm covering a class I admittedly don't really main, which is why mine is 210 for the Link. Starting off right from the beginner tab, DA gets a decent handful of passives no other classes get right off the bat. Immediate 100% knockback resistance upon making your character. Potions have 200% extra effectiveness, except potions that restore percentages, like elixirs, and a few more that need a bit of explaining. Blood Pact converts all your max health to attack power, as well as lets you ignore stat equipment requirements for warrior gear, because usually they have a minimum strength or dex requirement to equip. For equips that give flat bonus health as a stat, only a certain percentage is applied to this max health total. I've tried calculating it and finding the formula, but couldn't find an accurate one. Don't fret over it too much. Also, if you get debuffed with a skill that reduces your healing, like Undead or other bosses that prevent healing in some way, the cost of your skills that use health is dropped to only 10% of the cost. Starforce Conversion converts all your Starforce of your equips to instead give health based on the number of stars of said equipped items. The skill even includes a little indicator at the bottom in orange, telling you how many stars are converted and how much health you gain from them. Dark Winds is your mobility skill. By default, you can click jump twice to glide, and if you hit left or right, you glide in that direction. If you jump and hit up twice, you up jump, and if you jump and hit left or right twice, you flash jump in those directions. If you don't like these controls at all, and are more used to just a standard flash jump, you can right click this skill, and it'll just act like most archers' flash jumps, where you just hit jump twice. I personally like the glide. Lastly, Exceed gives you a debuff every time you attack that stacks up to 20 times. In return, it boosts all the attacks with Exceed in the name in various ways depending on the skill. Usually attack speed and or range at the cost of more health per attack. However, this only happens once you attack 5 times in a row within 20 seconds. At first job, you get a couple passives, including one that restores health on hit. Exceed Double Slash is a standard 2-cut attack, and its Exceed bonus gives it extra range and attack speed at the cost of more health per Exceed stack. To get rid of it, use Overload Release, which removes all your Exceed stacks entirely, restores your health, and gives some extra damage, all depending on how many stacks you had when you used this skill. It also reduces the Exceed requirement for the attack bonuses from 5 down to 3 temporarily. Once this Exceed attack buff goes away, it goes back up to 5. I know this last bit is part of the Exceed skill, but it more so applies to Overload. Second job gives some fairly typical passives you come to expect of every class. A new Exceed skill that rushes forward with an Exceed bonus that increases damage and extra range at the very tip of the attack, but not extra mobility range. And Bat Swarm, which is a summon that goes forward and attacks until its timer runs out, uses up all its attacks, or travels to its maximum distance. Click the skill again to reverse its direction. Hey, look! You finally get some buffs at third job. One for reduced damage and increased resistances, and another that gives you more passive healing and max health. You also get a couple more passives that double your healing per attack, as well as a nice final damage buff to Overload Release, and this one that reduces the health penalties of Exceed, and increasing the damage of attacks at the Exceed bonus. Shield Charge is a 2-part short-range knockback skill that has a chance to stun enemies, and Vitality Veil is a hold-down skill that heals constantly from sapping health from enemies, and either at the end of its duration, or when you release the skill early, it does an explosion with pretty nice damage, 12-second cooldown. Your last skill at third, Exceed Lunar Slash, is one of DA's main mobbing skills that hits both in front of and behind you. Its Exceed bonus increases the attack speed and range. Fourth job shoves some more passives at you, including this final attack one that has a chance to deal more lines with Exceed bonus skills. Maple Warrior and Hero's Will are standard on every class. Nothing too special here for demons, other than the fact that they get a cool demon goddess for their Maple Warrior. Blood Prison is a bind with a fairly big hitbox, 2-minute cooldown. Exceed Execution is your main bossing skill, with its Exceed bonus giving extra attack speed and 2 more lines per attack. Nether Slice is an attack that reduces enemies' defenses for a minute, which is a pretty nice debuff for bosses. As an attack for grinding, it's fairly alright. High amount of mobs hit, but it doesn't hit behind or get any Exceed bonuses, like faster attack speed. At least it does have some pretty alright forward range, and 1 extra attack line over Lunar Slash. Lastly, Nether Shield summons shields that fly out of you and attack nearby enemies multiple times. 6-second cooldown, and if it kills an enemy, it flies right towards the next until it runs out of attacks. It also gives a passive that ups Lunar Slash's damage a ton. Hyper skills start off pretty strong with Thousand Swords, a big AoE attack with an 8-second cooldown that does a good amount of damage. The only downside is it gives 5 Exceed stacks every time you use this skill. Demonic Fortitude is the epic adventure of DA, and works on all Demon, Resistance, and Xenon classes in the party. 1 minute duration, 2 minute cooldown. Last but not least, Forbidden Contract is a very simple buff that gives you slight damage increase, but makes all your skills cost no health for 30 seconds, 75-second cooldown. For DA's hyper passives, you'll absolutely want everything for Exceed. Reinforce for extra damage, Reduce Overload which caps your max Exceed debuff stacks cap at 18 instead of 20, and Opportunity brings your final damage chance up to 80% from its initial 70. The Ward Evil's Harden looks useful, but it apparently has no effect on percent health attacks, according to what I could find on the DA Discord. Ward Evil's other passives for resistances aren't too much of a meaningful boost either. Nether Shields though, they're all pretty useful. Spread you'll definitely want, so the shields you're out attacking for a little bit longer. And as of the time recording this, get Reinforce. Range would be nice to have the shield attack further away enemies, and I'd recommend it, but it's currently bugged as of the time recording this, and it doesn't actually do anything. Now that we've reached 5th job, it's time to say goodbye to all your health. Demonic Frenzy is a toggle that drains 6,000 health a second from you constantly, and absolutely annihilates your healing from skills and potions, but it ups your final damage depending on how much percent health it ate up to 20% final damage. It also gives you an AoE that hurts anything standing near you. Once you reach 30% health or lower, the 6,000 health per second drain stops, and your healing goes back to normal until you hit 30% health or higher again. Demonic Blast ignores the health limitations of Demonic Frenzy, and it heals you regardless, just so long as you do the last hit on enemies with this skill. In bosses, it just heals you if you attack with Blast at all. It also does a nice chunk of damage, can be used during any other skill, and in bosses that do max health damage, it can reduce said damage by 30% if you time the attack right. 12-second cooldown, so you can use it pretty often with no downside. Dimensional Sword summons swords that spin above your head, attacking constantly, have 100% IED, and it even ignores damage reflect. If you click it again, it attacks immediately and reduces the remaining duration by 1/5 or 20%. 2 minute cooldown. The last 5th job skill Demon Avengers get is Revenant. First off, look how cool this icon is. Second, it prevents you from falling below 1 health for 15 seconds, and when using Exceed skills, activates a new attack called Thorn of Fury for a bit of extra damage. The cooldown in between Thorn attacks says 4 seconds, but I don't think that's entirely accurate. I'm fairly certain it lowers the more health you lose during the skill. Once your 15 seconds of this skill are up, all the damage you took during its duration, up to 100% of your max health, is seeped back into you and reduces your health by that much, split across 25 stacks every 1.5 seconds or so. 2 minute cooldown. One shared warrior node that's very useful for DA is Impenetrable Skin. It's the only source of super stance they get, and it gives them some status resistance and a bunch of damage on hit. Regardless if it's used or not, it also passively gives a nice chunk of health, going up per skill level, 2 minute cooldown. As for other nodes unique to demons, there's Defender of the Demon, which summons Mastema in cat form to follow you around, and attack alongside you for a little bit, 2 minute cooldown. And finally, Otherworld Goddess's Blessing gives some final damage, as well as a bunch of randomized buffs periodically, throughout the entire 40-second duration. One that restores health, even ignoring debuffs that would prevent it otherwise. Another that reduces damage taken by a ton, but only once per cast. One that lets you ignore a debuff cast on you, and one that just does a big AoE attack around you. Just like the other Goddess Blessing skills, this skill holds 2 charges, but this one builds up 1 charge every 2 minutes, compared to the other classes' 3 to 4 minutes. To make Demon Avenger easier to play, if you're taking a ton of damage from your Exceed skills, don't forget to use Overload Release occasionally to heal yourself and remove all your Exceed stacks. Don't forget Demonic Blast heals you too, and can be used during any attack. If you choose to keep Dark Winds unlocked to keep your glide, you can use this to your advantage for additional movement options, since it carries all your momentum from your last movement speed value. If you up jump in place and glide, you float in the air for about 7 to 8 seconds. If you flash jump into a glide without hitting left or right during the glide, you maintain that flash jump speed, which goes significantly faster than your normal glide speed. There's a few more movement options with just glide too, like quickly tapping glide while moving to do this little hop, slowly gliding and then speeding up by pressing the arrow keys left or right, or even this fun trick that lets you glide backwards. In bosses, you'll want your shields out slapping away at the boss pretty much at all times. If you wanted to take the risk of dealing more damage, or if you have enough health to sustain it, then keep Demonic Frenzy on at all times too. Same with grinding. Keep Demonic Frenzy active if you're comfortable with taking more damage, which isn't too major an issue, since Arcane River mobs onward won't be hurting you much outside of the anti-AFK ones. While grinding, remember to toss out your Bat Swarm occasionally to heal you in combat. Also, just like bossing, send your Nether Shields out anytime they're off cooldown. They help clear mobs pretty well. I'll also remind you that Lunar Slash is a pretty nice hitbox and hits on both sides of you, and is pretty nice for grinding too. Thousand Swords is also an amazing mobbing skill you can use every 8 seconds to clear a nice chunk of the map. Even though the max health cap is 500,000, this doesn't limit how much health DA gets towards their damage through health bonuses. They can keep building up damage indefinitely, up to the damage cap, with as much percent health as they want. They just don't get more health in their health bar past 500k. Upon researching this video, I learned something that I don't think is well known among most players. Demon Avengers can bypass one of their resource restrictions with this cash shop item, Potion Pot. The skill restriction in question is Demonic Frenzy. You can just ignore its 99% reduced healing if you buy a Potion Pot, so you can be pretty full on your health pretty much all the time if you're willing to pay the 700 NX every month to pull this off.
Oh! It's even pricier than I thought!
It's still victim to other things that reduce healing when using a potion, like Magnus's Blue Barrier, and some other cases like the Global Potion cooldown in harder bosses, etc. Otherwise, it's great for having Frenzy on at consistently higher health with way less risk of being on the verge of death constantly. Potion Pot also works for Demon Slayer, and at one point also once worked for Kana, but it was removed at some point for them because it was deemed overpowered for her to just have something to constantly heal all her mana back to full. So why wasn't this ever changed for the demons? Is it not a huge increase and therefore not seen as a priority to fix, but more so seen as an optional paid quality of life improvement? Yes. According to the Demon Avenger Discord, from what I could determine, reading every message in there mentioning and discussing anything close to Potion Pot, it doesn't even work in some fringe cases, and is more so just a comfort / quality of life thing for people that really feel the need to have more health with Frenzy on. It's not required at all to be an insanely powerful demon above everybody else. Most of the top DAs in the game don't even use it. Just know that if you don't buy one, you're not missing out on much that can't be made up for with just learning how to play the class better. I'm not a fan of pay-to-win items whatsoever, but I feel it's only right to go over this to disillusion it for people wanting to play this class, but feel like they can't because they have to buy some pay-to-win item. You don't need it as a requirement whatsoever. Both Demon Avenger and Slayer have a secondary unique to them, the Demon Aegis. The best in slot one you'll want is Ruin Force Shield, which drops from both normal and hard Damien. Its one downside is it increases all your damage taken by 25%, but it has a major upside of 10% final damage. A very risk and reward item, but still considered the best you can get. Small side note, this shield can drop for any class, and if that class happens to be one that uses a shield, you can anvil it onto your shield and wear it around, even if you aren't a demon. Other options for Aegises, until you get a Ruin Force shield, are Princess No's Accursed Shield, which drops from her through her fragment squares, Evolving Force Shield of Extremes, which comes from Neville in select towns for 100 mil mesos. Then below that are just the standard ones that upgrade as you get new job ranks up to level 100. For inner ability, the DA Discord claims the best you can get is +1 attack speed first line, and 10% cooldown skip and 10% boss damage for the second and third lines. Some other options for lines include 20% cooldown skip for the first line, but only if you don't reach attack speed 0. 8% damage to abnormal status mobs, and the standard other settles that are shared across every other class, like flat attack, dropper meso, etc. I think the general consensus here is cooldown skip in any capacity is good, just to spam your nether shield more frequently for both grinding and bossing. Now on to link skills. For grinding, the standard Evan, Mercedes, Aran, and Lara links, along with other damage helping links, something along the lines of this. And for bossing, even more damage links that's pretty standard across all characters. I'll also mention that DA's crit rate is fairly low compared to other classes, so links that boost crit rate like Explorer Archer, Phantom, and Beast Tamer are recommended to get your crit rate closer to 100%. Also decent sharp eyes at 5th job, or if you roll that line on your gloves. One last note about DA's link skills is, I'm pretty sure they're the only class that wants to use Kaiser's link skill. This does 20% extra max health if you get 1 to 210. Pretty major for the one class that uses health exclusively for their stats. For Trinodes, let's start with the bossing one. You'll want Exceed Execution, Nether Shield, and Infernal Exceed. For grinding, get Exceed Lunar Slash, Thousand Swords, and Bat Swarm. Bat Swarm isn't really necessary for the last one, but DAs don't have much else they want to boost outside of those first 5 skills. Nether Slice could work too if you like using that for mobbing, but the overall recommendation is Bats because they're passively out, roaming around the map for a little bit, doing damage for you and healing you per hit. For Burst/BA, pop all your buffs including Fortitude, debuff the boss with Nether Slice, pop Weapon Aura and other 5th skills like Defender and Goddess if you have those available, pop Dimensional Sword, then Revenant, AB Link and or Impenetrable Skin if you have those too, then Dimensional Sword again for the immediate burst damage. Then, just keep spamming Exceed Execution. Shorten down further, buff up, Nether Slice, Dimensional Sword, Revenant, Dimensional Sword again, spam Execution. Apparently not all DAs use Revenant during burst, and either save it for before or after their burst, or as a panic survival button. The order of when they pop these skills also varies a ton, so don't rack your brain too much over getting the order right. Just so long as you remember to buff up as much as you can before hitting Dimensional Sword twice, you're fairly good to go. Honestly, I'm glad I made this guide, mainly because trying to gather info for Demon Avenger was a bit of a tangled mess. Personally, I feel, if anything, at least for myself, a proper guide for DA was needed. Their class Discord has a lot of useful information organized, but some things you gotta dig around for to get a clear answer on. I tried organizing it as best as I could in this video, so I hope I was able to make sense of this class for you. I still want to thank and credit them for all the info in their Discord. Without it, I wouldn't know half of DA's more specific systems, mechanics, or combos. If you have other suggestions for guides you want to see me tackle next, let me know down in the comments section. That's all.